Please note, this session is being recorded.
Well, I should sit upright.
So, Guru Nation, as Chris is sitting upright, welcome to quarantine. We are in the middle of coronavirus lockdown. There is light at the end of the tunnel, Chris. And, we do these daily.
It's very dark.
There's a little light at the end of the tunnel.
Can't leave my
In this
house.
case. That's right, you can't. That will happen when things are very nice. We are out of the tunnel. But right now we can see the light. It's there. Things are leveling off. New York's a hot spot. There's a few other hot spots. But really it's just New York, New Jersey.
I'm like twitching. I have this I have this need to go shoot my new gun. I haven't been able to do that yet. It's just been sitting in my safe for a month now.
Wait, where you normally go in the outdoors, you're not allowed to go right now?
No, I was going to you're not allowed to go to a range, and I don't even think you're allowed to go outdoors. I'm sure
but you were shooting it outdoors in the desert.
Sometimes when I would take my rifles, but just the handguns, I would go to an indoor facility, which is closed.
Okay.
And I even think the outdoor facilities are closed because you saw that guy on the news in Venice Beach or something where he got arrested. He was the only person in the ocean and was arrested.
I saw that, and that's happening in Europe too. But anyways, with all that being said, I mean, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we are in the middle of quarantine. And fittingly, this topic will be, and by the way, we're doing daily meetups, Monday through Friday. If you want the link, the invitation, just message me on Instagram or text me 949-415-6256, and I'll get you the link. Just say, hey, Dan, I want the link for the daily meetups. Boom, I know what you're talking about. I have it saved in my Evernote. Just copy and paste. So, Chris, what's this topic? This podcast is going to also be our webinar for April. So what is this topic? What are we talking about?
So a lot of, as we've seen, got an email today, right, from a client who's concerned about how her business is going with this COVID and lockdown and everything else. So thought it would be a good time to discuss what to do when your business isn't going as well as you anticipated or had hoped. Right?
When life happens, by the way, guys, this is life. Okay, Chris and I, our business was growing. Like last year was a record year for us. This year was on pace to be a record year. Probably still going to be a record year for us. If the optimistic me turns out to be right. I think it'll be maybe a V-shaped recovery, at least in research. I don't want to talk about the regular economy because I know some people in other sectors are really struggling. But in research, we're lucky to be in research, all of us, because this is about as recession-proof and definitely as pandemic-proof as you can be is clinical research. Healthcare in general, but clinical research too. I mean, it's at the it's like Main Street news now. Clinical trials. Everybody knows now what's clinical research. It's in the news all the time.
So for this podcast and the webinar, I think we really have two topics here, right? One, specific to COVID, but just in general, if your business isn't going as well as you had hoped, right? What you can do to offset those factors. Hopefully.
Couple of things, yeah. So let's go one by one. Let's go with the elephant in the room, which is coronavirus.
Right.
How it's impacting sites. I mean, I just said we're lucky to be in research because when you look at it, patients don't want to come to sites right now. Could be a problem. Sponsors putting studies on hold could be a problem. But when you put it in perspective, you own a research site. Your neighbor maybe owns a restaurant. Okay, they're screwed.
Okay? Oh yeah.
For you,
in the future, if you own that restaurant.
Yeah, they're screwed. Or they own a hotel, or they own a business of Airbnbs. They're screwed. You in research, you've got it good. I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but you've got it good.
Yes, I would completely agree with that analysis. Wholeheartedly.
So, research is pandemic proof. That does not mean that instantly your business is going to start going up again. But
sorry to interject real quick, but I
Yeah.
mean, just take the example of what you told one of our coordinators to do as far as the patients didn't want to come to the site. I mean, sponsors are willing to work with you, right? If they're continuing with their studies.
I'm glad we got into that because yes, sponsors are willing to work with you. Basically, they're telling you to do whatever you got to do to keep the studies alive. But before we get into those nitty-gritty details, because we will give practical advice, I just want to paint the picture, the context. So the industry is in startup mode. Okay, me and
Mhm.
Chris, through our consulting firm, where we get studies for sites, we get studies for our clients, we get studies for our sites that we own, and we network with sites across the country, actually around the world. Okay, everyone we talk to from CRO sponsor level says we're in startup mode. Okay, so more feasibilities coming your way, more CDAs. Now is the time to do biz dev. Now is the time because June, July, August, whenever these studies get started, you know, you want to be one of the sites. And by the way, they're going to start doing remote site selection visits and maybe even remote site initiation visits.
They're
So
already
when
doing
I
it. Yeah.
They're already doing it. So when I say June, July, August, normally I mean when you're gonna, that's when you're gonna have your site selection visit and your contract and budget. No, no. When I say June, July, August, I mean that's when you're gonna start
Okay.
screening patients,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
Knock on
absolutely.
wood, but that's the way things seem to be going. And then the stat, from coronavirus, as bad as they are in New York and New Jersey and a few other hotspots, it's really not as bad as nowhere near as bad as people anticipated.
Mhm.
Um, Now, the recovery, when will people feel, especially patients, when will patients start feeling comfortable to come back? That's going to be up to them, but the sites are going to have to do a good job of sterilizing the site. There's a lot of increased overhead now with the sites.
Yep.
You're gonna have to hire like not just regular janitors anymore. You need like medical grade supplies. You need like hospital grade bleach. You need to wipe down everything in the site because a lot of these vulnerable patients, like the patients who come to your sites, many of them are vulnerable at risk patients.
Mhm.
So they're coming to your site. They need to make sure that you're taking everything that you need to do, all the precautions to make sure that they're safe when they come in, right?
And even then, though, they may not be comfortable. And like I said a little bit ago, you have a solution for that, right?
We have a solution. So here's the solution. So one of our studies, we're dealing with patients at a residential living facility. So during normal times, these patients come to our site with a Uber. We have a Uber account and we have them come based on their scheduled visit. We do all the procedures in the office and then they go back with Uber, right? So that's fine. Now the facility is on lockdown, as they should be, because this is dangerous for those population. These are a lot of elderly people, a lot of people with comorbidities. Okay, so what are we doing now? Well, we have two options. We can withdraw everyone from the study. Okay, I don't want to get rid of this finger because I'm gonna flip you off. We're gonna withdraw everyone from the study,
Right.
or you do what you got to do, which is basically what the sponsors told us. So the solution came up with, and you and I are working on a hybrid virtual trial, right?
Yep.
That's going to help a lot of sites. That includes telehealth and patient-reported outcomes virtually, which we
Mhm.
are going to talk about slowly as we start developing it. Matter of fact, the technology is already developed. It's just a matter of selling it and putting all the logistics together.
Yep.
So the solution was, I told this coordinator, okay, this is what we got to do. We got to keep these patients in. Okay. They're at the point, there's three of them. They're at the stage, there's either two or three, I don't remember. They're at the stage where they're about to get the injection. Okay. And you need a blinded, you need an unblinded nurse to do the injection. Okay. The thing is, it's not as simple as sending the nurse to the patient facility because the facility is not letting anyone in from outside unless it's one of their doctors. Our nurse does not qualify. Not to mention the fact that our nurse might be nervous to do this. Okay, which they should be. I mean, it's their life. Okay, so that's not in the question, right? So what else can we do besides withdrawing the patients? What we're doing is just doing unscheduled visits. Phone call every week. We're doing as many assessments as we can. We have somebody from the facility doing their vitals. Okay, so they're writing them down, and then we're doing the we're gonna continue to refill their IP, their oral IP, not the injection yet. And we're going off protocol now, but we got sponsor approval. So it's basically weekly unscheduled visits by phone with no blood draw, obviously, but weekly unscheduled visit with as much as we can do from the assessments. We got to keep a log of this. And then when the facility is ready to start letting patients come out again, which we don't know when it will be, then we're going to randomize them. So basically, they're just on this extended, unscheduled visit. And as long as we keep doing certain assessments, uh, PANS and a few other psychometric assessments, which you can do virtually. Well, this is the good thing about CNS. You can do a lot of the assessments virtually.
But even if
It's
it's
not like
not,
asthma.
sorry,
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not like asthma where you got to blow into a spirometer, right? Like you need to actually be there, and that would actually be a high risk activity for both the patient and the person
oh,
doing it.
absolutely. But
But
even
like
in those
doing a
cases,
Skype like this is like, hey, I can ask you questions. How are you feeling? I can go through the script and do our assessment there.
but even in the case of the example you gave there, the asthma trial, right? I think even in that situation, they would allow the site to do as we're doing, right? So they can keep the patients in until, the foreseeable future, as long as that future is not too long. If it's 2, 3 months, they anticipate this going on for, they'll probably allow those patients to stay in, just continuously doing unscheduled visits, checking up on their safety, making sure they're okay, and prescribing any medications that are involved.
That's
Even
right.
even allow them to take over if they're on some sort of oral IP. Probably allow them to take that over, right? Drop it off at the door with the person. Um,
Right.
I would assume they would allow that. So you may not be able to do these assessments, these physical assessments, ECGs, labs, that type of thing, but you can still get these patients to stay in the studies, right, and receive some sort of payment for that work. I would assume.
Yeah. Yeah, and but the thing is now these unscheduled visits are not paid automatically. So you as the site need to make sure that you're billing these things
Yep.
accordingly, right? So you need to
So it's
keep a
not,
track. There's a
yeah.
EDC page for this, unscheduled visits. There's going to be a lot of unscheduled visits.
Mhm.
It's technically a deviation, but we got sponsor approval. So if you have, this is the time for you sites to start thinking outside the box, okay? If you have a solution that can keep the patients safe and keep the patients in the study somehow, okay, the sponsors are going to approve it. They're basically saying, okay, well, we're going to, and they'll let you know if it's not approved and what they want you to do.
Yep.
This may work because it's a long-term study. Maybe in a shorter phase 2 study, this wouldn't be allowed. Because timing is important. Like everything needs to be done quickly. In a
Mhm.
longer-term study, this is fine. So this is not gonna be a one-stop or one-size-fits-all solution.
And
But
and
you got
don't
to be creative.
and don't assume that it wouldn't work in a phase two. Well, just offer it up to the sponsor and see what they tell you.
Exactly. Let them tell you no.
Yep.
And that's one way to keep your patients in the study during this. And if you want to start incorporating telehealth, we have platforms for that. So let us know because the clinical scoop's going to emerge from this pandemic, hopefully, uh, a totally different company. We went from a media company and publishing to now getting into hybrid virtual trials.
Mhm.
So, and we're going to continue doing the media stuff too. So if you need the telehealth solution, let us know. We can help you with that. Also helps with patient-reported outcomes and all those kind of things. And if you're a sponsor and you need help, we have this we have this plan where we implement telehealth and patient-reported outcomes through the same platform, and we also send phlebotomists to go draw the blood and then bring the lab samples back to the site. So these are the kind of things you need to be thinking about no matter who you are in the industry. How can you solve the pain points? How can you find where the disconnects are? in the space. And so that's one specific thing we're doing during coronavirus. So actually two things. So we're applying for a bunch of studies, and we're hoping that we're going to get a bunch of these studies, and then in June, July, August, and then we are doing whatever we can to keep the patients we have in the study. We have
Better.
no studies. We have no studies that are screening right now at any of the sites I can think of, but I do know I do know other sites who are screening patients even today as we record this on April 14th.
Mm-hmm.
So do what you got to do, revise your SOPs. All of our clients got a SOP revision. We sent it to everyone, right? All the SOP revision.
We did.
And then overhead, change your overhead policy, increase it. You're gonna have more expenses now as well. Plus scanning. So let's talk about monitoring, because I'm on the other side now as a CRA as well. Okay, I'm a contract CRA. Getting the sites to scan documents is such a challenge. Okay, this is another pain point that us through the clinical scoop is solving. Not only are we facilitating patient visits, but we are facilitating remote monitoring visits, because we will have somebody, one of our own staff members, go to the site. Hey, you coordinator, you don't have time, I understand. I'm going to scan these documents and put them in this portal for the CRA to review.
Absolutely.
And no cost to you. No cost to you, site. The sponsor's paying for this.
And we'll absolutely do this, but sponsors could facilitate this readily on their own, right? If they just went to the PIs, sent them an email, said, we'll pay $90 an hour or something like that. And I'm not trying to cut our own throats here, but that would oftentimes take care of their refusal to scan these documents. They'll push their coordinators to do it then.
Right. I think it's not about money with the sponsor. I think you're right. But I think the sponsors are more concerned about the liability from their end. What if they choose a platform that's, has a data breach? They'd rather
Well,
just stay away from that and have an external vendor deal with
sure.
it.
But we have that solved, that issue, right?
We have that solved, and probably the pharma does too, but they don't want to take those liability. It's not about the money for them.
Okay.
And even if you did that for even if pharma said, hey, we're going to send somebody to your site, I mean, they have to now take on a new employee. That's more liability for them. They don't really want to do that.
Mm-hmm. True.
And it's not their core competency either.
Yeah, good point, valid.
So what's the next part of this? So it's the how to thrive during, or how to maintain during coronavirus. And then how about just in general, if your business is not doing good?
So let's start with an email we received not too long ago from
Okay.
not a client, but somebody who emailed us both and said, "Hey, my business it's failing." It was a doctor,
Okay.
and said, "I'm sure you recall this email once I get to the crucial point here." He said, "I'm shutting the doors in 30 days if I can't get a new study. Can you bring me a study in 30 days?"
Oh
So
yeah, did we ever get that guy as a client?
no, because
Hmm.
in my opinion, he was being a little bit, he was a little late to the party, right?
And that was before coronavirus too.
Correct, correct. So you can't expect things to turn around in 30 days, right? If you only have 30
Right.
days to turn things around, the game's over, usually, right?
Yes.
You need a little more time than that to turn things around, but
In
there are
research
things,
you do.
yeah, there are things you can do that can be done that could turn things around for you, but you need more time than 30 days.
Agree. You need like 90 days at least.
Right, exactly.
At
Exactly.
least. Unless you already have some sticks in the fire, which didn't sound like this guy did. So yes, exactly right. So you need to know going in, okay, I need like a 90-day turnaround, not a 30-day. 30-day turnaround, maybe you can solve like cash flow cash flow by getting a loan, maybe from SBA. You can get a loan, like a payroll protection loan, or one of the advances, which I hear some people are getting. We haven't gotten one, right? We haven't received any from what
No,
we've
no, you're
applied for.
right.
So yeah, I mean, maintain. So even in coronavirus, or let's say after coronavirus, if things get back to normal in research at least, but your site for some reason is not doing well. And by the way, there's a million places where you can not do well as a site, but usually it boils down to three things, okay? Your lack of PI, lack of your PI involvement, which translates into usually into a lack of patient enrollment. And the third one is not enough studies. Okay, so usually one of those three things goes wrong, and you need all three to go right for your business to do well.
It
You
makes sense.
can't just have one of these three or two of these three. You need all three. Okay, you can't just have a bunch of studies and no patients, or vice versa. A bunch of patients, no studies. You need both, and you need your PI engaged on top of it. So you got to keep all these people happy. I always talk about how to keep, your job as a site owner is to keep those people happy, patients, physicians, and sponsors. That's it. That's easier said than done, but that's your job. And then
So,
employees is a fourth.
so what should a site do if they have the patients, they can't get studies? What would be some ideas that may help them bring on some studies?
Uh, Increase like immediately by 10 times, if not more, your business development output. So I guarantee you, if I were to talk to those sites, they're not on clinicaltrials.gov emailing, they're not networking, they're not going to conferences to get studies, they're not networking with other sites, they're not doing much of this stuff.
Right.
Because if you have that database, sponsors should be coming to you, not the other way around. So increase your business development
Which we can help with.
immediately. You can do that in-house yourself, or you can hire us and continue to do it in-house yourself and have an external company help you out as well. We're pretty cheap, $1,299 a month. Can't beat that, and we help with all kinds of other stuff too. But you need to increase your output. It's the
Yep.
same thing with these job seekers, when they say, hey, I'm getting frustrated, I'm not getting any interviews, and then I ask them how many places they applied to, and they say three. So that's not enough. You need like 300. People underestimate the amount of output they need.
Right.
Like they think, okay, I sent an email today, I'm going to send another one next week because I really want this study. And then, I'll do another one. Well, that's nothing. That's nothing.
Right.
Okay. You need to be doing like 30 a day.
Yep. At least
If
eight
I was
hours.
the guy if I were the guy who messaged us within 30 days he needs a study, I should have asked him how many are you applying to a day, because you need to be applying to 100 a day.
Yep. Minimum. I mean, we've had this conversation before. We've done. I don't think a webinar, but we've done
Yeah, we've
podcasts.
done a webinar on this. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Okay, it's a minimum 8 hours, 8 hours a week minimum, right? And that's even I would recommend that even with our service.
That's
You can
just to
do,
maintain. That's to
yeah,
maintain.
yeah,
Because once you start doing well, once you start getting studies, okay, your next problem becomes getting patients in your studies, right? If you do a good job of getting the patients in the studies, even if your quality of your data is not that great, as long as it's just good enough, you're going
yeah,
to keep getting more studies. We've been told this by just about every sponsor we talk to at conferences, in person, in Zoom, in Face, by text, Instagram, however they want to communicate. They all said the same thing.
yep. So long as your data is acceptable, if you're bringing lots of patients to the game, they're going to come back to you time and again.
That's right. And then that 8 hours is good to maintain because you're getting now studies passively.
Yep.
Okay. But now your problem becomes, how do I get more patients for these new studies? Because once you start getting more studies, it's easy to enroll. If you have a good database of schizophrenics, it's easy to enroll in one study. It may be even easy to enroll in two or three studies. But what happens when you get to that fourth study? Now your other three studies have patients already in there. You can't use those patients. Now you need new patients. Everybody has the problem of not enough patients.
Right.
Because getting more studies, by definition, you're going to need more patients. So
Yeah.
your success can become your failure.
At least with one sponsor in your specific example here.
Yeah, but even if then you're wasting money on that study, you're allocating resources to it, and you're not accomplishing anything, and you could have put those resources somewhere else.
Yep.
So you could even lose money on it. Okay, so
Yeah.
patients is the next thing. And then physicians, how do you diversify? You know, I bet you right now, all these sites, the only sites enrolling right now, I mean, there's always exceptions, but the main studies enrolling right now are coronavirus studies. I bet you sites wish they had an infectious disease doctor now as a PI.
Oh,
Because
of
you don't
course.
need to even ask for that. They'll come to you. Hey, can you do? I mean, you and I have seen from our client services like 3 coronavirus studies last week,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So, diversifying the kind of studies you can do is another thing sites should be focusing on during good times or bad, because there's always going to be a bad times. These things are cyclical.
Yeah.
They,
Don't rely on
we we
don't
can
rely
be
on Sorry, Dan.
never do. Like we can be. We were just between 2010 and 2020. We were in 10 years of like economic boom. Okay, during that 10 years, indications went through cycles. Like if you all you did was dermatology in 2012, you weren't getting any business. Okay, that started picking up again in derm like in 2018. All right. Same thing with psychiatry. Psychiatry went through a drought like in 2013, 2014, started picking back up 2015. You can go through indication by indication outside of oncology, goes through those.
Yep.
Okay, so even if you are in a good times, like we were, if you're just dependent on one indication, you're going to go through a micro depression. You can have your own Great Depression at your own site if all you do is dermatology and there's no dermatology studies. You don't need to wait for the economy to go through the Great Depression. It could be in the roaring 50s. Okay, but if all you do is derm, you're in a Great Depression.
No, without a doubt. No
So
doubt.
that's diversify. All the stuff we've been talking about is even more true now, if there can be such a thing.
Yeah. I
Even
agree.
truer, is that the way to say it? Even truer or more true?
I would say more true. I think truer is a word.
English is my first language, guys. Actually, it's my second, but it should be my first now at
Eh,
this point.
borderline first. Borderline first.
Borderline first, borderline. So what else? So that's how we talk about the how to get through coronavirus. I mean, honestly, the answer is do what you got to do, be creative, talk to your sponsors, look for opportunities, look for dislocations in the marketplace, and then how to prevent your clinic from being in bad times and how to get it out of bad times. We kind of discussed that.
Yep. Yep.
Does that satisfy you?
If you're speaking to the viewer, I have no idea. Does it satisfy
No,
me?
I'm speaking to you, Chris Sauber.
Yeah,
Chris
I think
at
it's good.
brkthru.org.
Thank
Chris
you.
at brk. Did you change your email server yet?
No, not yet. I
Unreal.
gave Rosario and Carlos 2 weeks. It's been,
That was like 4 weeks ago.
oh, I think it's been three. I think it's been three.
Okay, I'm
I'll go
close.
back and do it because I want to check with them, make sure. I didn't want to just do it.
So what else? What else? Is this enough for the webinar and for the podcast?
I think so. I think we touched on everything necessary. Um,
Well, what's your advice for the sites? I mean, I don't want to do all the talking.
well, I've done some talking, but yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I agree with what you're saying. I think you hit on all the points that needed to be covered, right? I would add, I don't think you want to be in a situation like you kind of alluded to this, but you don't want to overextend yourself, right? Make sure you're capable of doing what you said you can do. You don't want to bring on, like you said, in that situation with the fourth study, you want to bring on that fourth study that you don't have patients for, right? Because you're going to burn a bridge, right? Um,
Mhm.
and we've touched on this in webinars or podcasts or something, but never enroll zero patients in a study, right?
Thank you.
Awful, awful. Don't do that, right? One patient, if you promise to sponsor 10 patients and you enroll one patient, they're not going to be happy with you, but they may still come back to you in the future. You enroll that goose egg, and they may not ever come back to you again.
Yeah, if you tell them you enroll 10 and you only enroll 0, they're not coming back. But if you tell them 10 and you enroll 1 or 3, like you said, they won't be happy, but they'll come back to you still because they
Got
need
that
that
data.
data.
Yep.
You get some data. So if you take on that study that you're kind of iffy about, make sure you at least have 1 or 2 or 3 patients that you know can randomize, not that can screen, that
Right.
can randomize in the study.
Yep. What was that?
I believe our virtual assistant left, which is scary.
Oh, okay.
They're not allowed to leave.
Yeah. I thought it was somebody who had joined and left. But I
They're
didn't know.
here. They are here to serve us. These are the algorithms of this platform. They're called virtual assistants. It's not a human, but it's a machine, and
That
its
AI.
whole purpose of AI is that it doesn't get tired. This one got tired, doesn't like what we're talking about, and
Yeah.
left.
Yeah. Hung up on us.
Yeah, a human would be better.
Yeah. In this case. So yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. I think it's good.
Okay, so Carlos, enjoy making these slides. You have 2 weeks, and I'll send this to Carlos today. And thank you, Chris, and thank you everybody for watching and listening. Good luck out there. And remember, just now is the time. Think outside the box. Look for opportunities. If you're struggling with something, you're not the only one. Okay?
Yep.
Everybody is struggling. So if you can find a solution that works for your site, maybe you found something that could work for other sites.
Yep.
It's another
Now,
business.
and I would just add, if you really have no solution, you can always reach out to Dan or I, and we can have a conversation.
Or even if you do, reach out. We'll have a conversation. We're in quarantine, so we're doing nothing.
Yep.
Ironically, I've been busier than I've ever been in quarantine.
Well, I haven't, but that's okay.
It's
Leave,
been busy.
leave Dan alone.
It's been busy, man. It's been busy. But yes, so thank you, Chris. Thank you everybody for watching and listening, and we'll catch you on the webinar. Take care.
Absolutely.